Why the Boston Red Sox could still miss the playoffs in 2025.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I'm here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And do you want to know what the best part is? It's completely free. So make sure you tune in because Locked On is here for you every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Think that sounds awesome? Good, because I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it later on today's show. But unfortunately, we have to wait another day for the Red Sox to potentially clinch a postseason spot this year. Could not get the job done last night because they dropped the series finale against the Blue Jays. What exactly is it going to take now? And why can the Red Sox still miss the playoffs? That's being discussed on today's show, as well as is Brayan Bello ready for a playoff spot? And the Red Sox are playing a big series this weekend against the Tigers. I'm going to be previewing that a little bit as well. So lots coming up here in the next few days. And by no means are the Red Sox still safe. They yesterday would have needed either an Astros loss or a Red Sox win in order to clinch a playoff spot yesterday. Unfortunately, the complete opposite of that happened. The Astros won their game and the Red Sox lost theirs. So now the Astros have pulled to within 2 games of the Red Sox in the wild card standings, with the Red Sox holding a record of 87-72 and the Astros holding a record of 85-74. So right now, at this point in time, theoretically, the Astros could still pass the Red Sox if they win out and the Red Sox lose out. That's literally what it would take. The Astros would have to sweep the Angels this weekend, and the Red Sox would have to get swept by the Tigers in order for the Astros to jump ahead of the Red Sox in the wild card standings. And if the Red Sox were to get swept by the Tigers, then that would mean the Tigers also end with a better record than the Red Sox, because the Astros and Tigers are really close to each other. The Astros are only a game behind the Tigers, who are a game behind the Red Sox. So if the Tigers sweep the Red Sox this weekend, then they would finish a game ahead of the Red Sox. And if the Astros also sweep over the weekend, then the Red Sox will be the odd man out. Now, I also say this because the Tigers are currently in a wild card spot right now because they're tied with the Cleveland Guardians in their division at 86-73. So that could change. The Guardians hold the tiebreaker over the Tigers. So if the season ended today, the Guardians would win that division. But if the Tigers sweep the Red Sox this weekend and the Guardians were to get swept, then the Guardians would fall back into a wild card position as well if they were to finish the season at 86-76. And theoretically, if the Red Sox were to win their games this weekend, then they would be safe. But if the Red Sox were to get swept by the Tigers, they would finish the season right at 87-75. So the Guardians could, if they sweep, finish with a couple more wins better than the Red Sox. So therefore, nothing's guaranteed right now. The Red Sox could miss out on a playoff spot if they are not careful. All they have to do is win one game against the Tigers this weekend, and they're into the playoffs. Just win one of these 3 games over the next few days. Or the Astros just need to lose a single game, and the Red Sox are in the playoffs guaranteed. So say in this weekend series, say tonight's game comes up, and the Red Sox win and the Astros lose, then you can cross that off the list, playoff spot guaranteed. Then they're mainly just playing for seeding the rest of the weekend because things could still change in that regard. As of right now, the Red Sox would go to the Bronx for a wild card series, but the Yankees are currently tied with the Blue Jays, who do hold the tiebreaker over New York for the AL East lead. So if they finish with the same record, Toronto would win the division and get the bye. And then the Yankees would play the Red Sox in the Bronx for a best of 3 wild card series. But those division standings could still change. The Red Sox at this point cannot win their division because they are 4 games out, but they could still wreak havoc on the wild card standings too, because if they win all 3 of their next 3 games, and say theoretically, I mean, the likelihood of this happening is really slim, but say theoretically either the Blue Jays or the Yankees get swept over the weekend, then the Red Sox in that case would jump closer to them. So essentially what that would look like is those teams right now are both at 91 and 68. So because the Red Sox only have 3 games left and they have 87 wins, they still cannot finish the season with a better record than either of those teams, because the maximum number of wins that the Red Sox can get at this point is 90. So that would mean even if either the Blue Jays or Yankees get swept over the weekend, they would still finish with a game better record than the Red Sox have, which means the best that the Red Sox can do right now is the second wild card spot. So that means they will either be the second, third wild card spot, or they'll be out. Preferably not out, obviously, but like I said, everything's still so tight right now in those standings, and the Red Sox didn't do themselves any favors because they did take a 6-1 loss against the Blue Jays last night in a game where the offense was absolutely abysmal. They only had 4 hits in the game total and an error on Trevor Story in the 6th that led to a big inning for Toronto, who had 7 hits in the game. And this was such a pathetic effort for the Red Sox offense, to the point where the Blue Jays literally were throwing a perfect game up until the 7th inning. Literally a perfect game. The Red Sox did not have a single base runner in this game until the 7th inning. And it's especially irritating because you would think that after the first couple games of this series and the Red Sox having all this momentum and being super excited and knowing the fact that they could clinch a playoff spot if they won last night's game, you would think they would go into that super excited and with a sense of fire, but they just came out completely flat. The bats looked lifeless. They could not get anything going in a game in which it was a bullpen game for the Blue Jays. So they weren't even facing one of their starting pitchers. So obviously it's disappointing, but you can't win every game. It was still a good series win against a division opponent on the road that the Red Sox have struggled against all season long so far. And it's not going to take much at this point for the Red Sox to get a playoff spot, but it is baseball and crazier things have happened. And it would really take the Red Sox losing out and the Astros winning out and essentially passing the Red Sox for a playoff spot. And if the Red Sox lose out, that also obviously means that the Tigers would jump ahead of them as well. And then again, that would also depend on the Guardians and what they do over the weekend as well. So obviously there are still factors in this, because the Guardians could win their series over the weekend or they could sweep. And then if the Tigers sweep the Red Sox and the Guardians also win all 3 of their games, then it's again looking like a situation in which it's complicated, because if the Guardians were to fall back, the Red Sox do own the tiebreaker against them, but they do not against the Tigers right now. So that's where things in that regard get complicated. So there's no clear, direct path right now as to what exactly has to happen. What they should really be focusing on, though, is taking care of business at home, because if they win 1 game and the Astros lose 1 game, they're in. But this Red Sox team can become complacent. And we've seen a lot of scenarios this season in which the Red Sox have lost a game and then it impacts their next game and they end up falling back and losing another couple games after that. And that's one of my biggest concerns, is they have to just forget about last night's game, put it behind them, and allow themselves to go and bounce back at home. And Trevor Story even made a comment after last night's game about how it'll be fun to do it in front of the home crowd, and the Fenway crowd will be really electric, which is all nice, but don't get too complacent and don't get too comfortable. And Alex Cora also said that they know what they need to do. And that's exactly what they're going to try to do, is take care of business at home and secure a playoff spot, because once you secure a playoff spot, all pressure's off. And speaking of pressure, is Brayan Bello truly ready for the postseason spotlight? I'm going to be talking about him next. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. That's exactly where Rugiet's Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill, it's a total game changer for confidence. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to rugiet.com and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure to use our code so they know that we sent you. Well. The Red Sox could not take care of business last night and sweep the series against the Blue Jays. And here they are fighting for their lives with a massive series against a good Tigers team over the weekend. And it was a little bit disappointing because there was a lot of excitement heading into this game last night, because the Red Sox had won the first two games of the series against the Blue Jays. They could smell a playoff berth, and by those standards, you would think they would have come out hot in this last game of the series, but nope, they basically were sleeping, especially from an offensive standpoint. And it was tough for Brayan Bello because he started this game and he actually looked better than he had for a lot of the month of September. He threw 5 innings, giving up 3 hits and 3 runs, with 2 of them being earned, with 3 walks and 3 strikeouts. He threw 89 pitches, with 54 of them going for strikes, gave up no home runs, and now sits at a 3.35 ERA on the season. And the thing about Bello in this game that was really noticeable that I liked from him was that he was getting out of jams. It's not like it was a smooth sailing outing for him, especially because he did have the 3 walks thrown in there. But when he had base traffic, he was executing the right pitches, which was a big reason why he was able to limit the damage in this game. And then he struggled in the 6th inning. It started with an error by Trevor Story that allowed the runner to be safe at first base to kind of start that inning. And then he had a hit batsman. He walked a couple guys and loaded the bases, and he got pulled, and Justin Wilson came in and gave up a grand slam. So he didn't have it either. Not his best day. But I blame this game a lot more on the offense than I do Brayan Bello, because he was looking really good all the way up until the 6th inning. And Alex Cora said that this was a step in the right direction for him in terms of the way that he looked in this game compared to where he was at earlier on in this month. In this specific game, the thing that bothered me the most was that his command wasn't all there. Similar to Lucas Giolito in his last outing, the walks kind of hurt him and drove up his pitch count. And that was the biggest problem that he had in this game, was that while he would find a way to get out of the jams that he got into, which was really good to see, he just drove his pitch count up exponentially high, and that ended up forcing the bullpen into the game at least an inning earlier than it should have been. I mean, I'm sure Alex Cora would have loved for Brayan Bello to be able to get through the 6th inning, and that is something that still remains a problem with him as of late, is because his pitch count gets really high earlier on in the games because of the walks and just allowing base runners, even though he is able to get out of those jams pretty effectively, and that's what we saw from him in this game. And things were pretty smooth sailing all the way up until that inning. So one of the biggest things with Bello moving forward is being able to try to stretch himself out a little bit more and be a little bit more efficient and effective. Because you can look at his box score from last night and say, well, you know, he was pretty efficient over 5 innings. I mean, sure, But if you really look at the underlying performance, it still could have been a little bit better. So the question becomes, is Brayan Bello ready for a playoff start? Would he truly be able to be trusted as the Red Sox number 2 in a playoff series behind Garrett Crochet? Because that's a big burning question as we head into the postseason is he the next most reliable starting pitcher on the team behind Crochet? And yes, the answer is still yes. He is still the number 2, and there is not another starter in this rotation that I would want to put in that number 2 spot over him. Why? Because even though he has struggled this September, he still has shown an ability to execute and throw the right pitches when he needs to. So if he were to go into game 2 of a wild card series and pitch against a really good offense, my concern would be him giving away free passes because good teams can capitalize on that and take advantage of walks. And that's something that I would be worried about with him, is if he gets into a jam early on because of the fact that he's giving up walks. Is he going to be able to get out of those jams as seamlessly when it's postseason baseball and the energy is a lot different and he's facing really good offenses? Is he still going to be able to be as effective? Or is it going to be the case where his command is a little bit better? Maybe he does give up some base runners, but he's executing the right way like he did for the most part last night, because it could go either way there. But the reason I still feel confident in Brayan Bello and his ability to throw as the number 2 starter in a playoff series is because we did see a glimpse of the more dominant version of Brayan Bello last night. And with Alex Cora saying it's a good step back in the right direction, they, I'm sure, have identified and worked with him on what has been causing him so much trouble on the mound over this last month. And with Alex Cora saying what he said, that says to me that they feel like he's getting back to form there with what we saw from him earlier on in the season. Now, when you think about Brayan Bello and his metrics for this year, he's in just the 17th percentile in strikeout percentage. He's never been a huge swing and miss guy, but he has been able to compensate for that with the weak contact and generating weak contact to a lot of hitters. So, for example, he's in the 58th percentile for hard hit percentage, which is above average, which basically means that less than half of the hitters about are making hard contact on his pitches, which is really promising. He's in the 82nd percentile with ground ball percentage, because that's always been something he's been really good at, is generating ground balls. And that's good for him. And that's something he has going for him, because if he's giving up base traffic in the playoffs, I would like his chances of generating a double play ball more than I would some other pitchers. And that's been the biggest problem with him, is the base traffic and driving up his pitch count. So if he can limit that and offset it by continuing to be dominant in that area of his game and generating ground balls at a high rate, he could find success as that number 2 starter for the Red Sox in the playoffs. Now, on the flip side of that, we think about his pitch count and driving that up very quickly and not necessarily being overly effective, because what happens with him, or what tends to happen usually, is that he'll have a really long inning that will completely mess with him. And a lot of times that's the first inning, because Bello does have trouble a lot of times settling in the first inning, which is another thing that I feel concerned about with him moving forward. Is, can he go into the playoffs and be clean right from the start? Or is he going to need time in the first inning or so to warm himself up? Because that's going to be an issue too, because when he's facing the best offenses in the league, he is going to need to be ready right away. Because if he is not super sharp from the first pitch of his outing, the Red Sox could lose the game before they even go up to bat. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on, is him figuring out how to be more effective and limit the base runners that he's giving up in general. And a lot of that will come with his command improving a little bit and being able to hopefully execute the right pitches at the right time. But Connor Wong is his personal catcher. He catches every time Bello is pitching, and he really helps him a lot. So I do give credit to Connor Wong for helping him to initiate and throw the right pitches when they need to be thrown. But the command thing isn't something that Connor Wong has control over as much during an in-game situation. If the pitcher can't find the strike zone, he can't find the strike zone. So I definitely think the idea of Brayan Bello being out there in a number 2 capacity in the playoffs is certainly a really good idea. We just need to get a version of him that can stretch himself out long enough to where it's not completely wearing out the bullpen every time he's out there in the postseason. But I do like his chances with his ability to generate those ground balls a lot. In September, he had a 5.85 ERA over 4 starts with a career worst strikeout rate and a high expected batting average against, as he did struggle against hitters despite strong individual game performances and an excellent barrel percentage since June. So he just hasn't been as effective this month, and that just is what it is. But he could very easily bounce back just as well as he could not. So obviously we're hoping for the latter, and we're hoping that he does bounce back, and I'm hoping that he's able to stay under control, but I do trust his ability to make the right pitches at the right times. And if we desperately need a double play ball, I would trust Bello to generate that because of the type of pitcher he is. So hopefully the Red Sox are able to continue to trust him in a playoff series and that he is able to get them what they need as that true number 2 starter, because the Red Sox are really going to need him to be reliable, because outside of Garrett Crochet, if everybody else is a question mark, it could cause a lot of damage in the playoffs in a bad way for the Red Sox, because if their starters aren't reliable, they are not going to win a playoff series. So we really need Bello to make sure that he is on his A game and that he's able to contribute what he needs to contribute. So we'll have to see what happens there. But coming up, massive series against the Tigers this weekend. I'm going to be previewing that a little bit next. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Make sure you win lots of money, because you can with FanDuel. Big series coming up here for the Boston Red Sox as they take on the Detroit Tigers this weekend, a team that is only a game behind the Red Sox right now in the wild card standings. And if the Red Sox want to secure that second wild card spot, which is the 5 seed in the American League, they need to win this series. It's not going to be easy. The Tigers, as of late, have not exactly been playing their best baseball, but they are a team that could break out at any time. And it feels like they are a team that's a hot streak away from being unstoppable in the postseason. They have a lot of means to be able to succeed. They have the recipe for it. They went to the playoffs last year, went pretty deep, and then went this offseason and made their team even better going into this year. So they're just struggling right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that struggle will continue into this weekend. And the Red Sox need to win the series to finish ahead of them, because if they finish in a tie with Detroit, Detroit has the tiebreaker over the Red Sox right now. So that would drop the Red Sox to below them. So this is a big series that the Red Sox have coming up here. And they have set primarily their pitching matchups for the series. So here's what it's looking like. They are rolling out Kyle Harrison for Friday night's game, Connelly early for Saturday's game, and a TBD pitcher for the last game. So Harrison and Early makes sense. They're the number 4 and 5 starters in the rotation right now, outside of the big 3 of Crochet, Bello, and Giolito. But here's the thing. So those two, there's going to be a lot of pressure on them, no doubt, to win their starts. But there's TBD for Sunday because the Red Sox haven't made a decision about that outing yet. And here's why. So game 162, the last game of the regular season on Sunday, is a scheduled Lucas Giolito start. So if the Red Sox are still fighting for their lives and battling for a playoff spot by the time Sunday hits, he will most likely make that start. But if they have already clinched their playoff spot by Sunday, and especially if their seeding is set to what it is, and the Red Sox can't really do anything about that to change their seeding if they win, then there's no way the Red Sox should have Giolito make that start, because you want to have him rest for the playoffs for as long as you can. Really, all of your starters, you want them to be fresh and ready to go for a wild card series. So that's the biggest reason why the Red Sox haven't announced a starter for Sunday yet, because they want to see how the next couple days play out, because there's no sense in wasting Lucas Giolito and rolling him out there on Sunday if it's a meaningless game that day and it doesn't really matter if they win or lose. So that likely will be a bullpen game on Sunday, or at least should be, if the Red Sox have clinched a playoff spot by then, which I hope they have, because it would be absolutely huge if Giolito could get his rest, because then he could be fresh for game 3 of a potential wild card series. And that would increase his chances a lot of looking very sharp, because Giolito overall has had a good season for the Red Sox, but he has had some bad outings and he's been fatigued this year. So the Red Sox need to allow him that opportunity to be able to rest as much as he can, because again, he didn't pitch the entirety of the season last year, so his arm might not necessarily have the stamina at this point in his career. So they need to make sure that they allow him to get that rest. So if they are clinched by Sunday, he definitely will not be making that start. So Kyle Harrison pitching tonight, a lot of pressure on him to try to get the Red Sox a win. He did well in his 2 appearances so far with the Red Sox, going 9 innings over 2 games and only giving up 1 run while getting 7 strikeouts. He's lowered his ERA from a 4.56 to a 3.58 and seems to be thriving with this Red Sox team. Connelly early also has done well, who's pitching on Saturday, posting a 1.88 ERA over 14 innings pitched with 22 strikeouts. So obviously both of those players are good options to throw, but the Fenway crowd is going to be loud this weekend. Fans are so hungry to get October baseball in Boston. Fans are so excited about the idea of the Red Sox clinching their first playoff spot since the 2021 season. So people are going to be loud. And the question is going to be, can guys like Harrison and Early handle that? Are they prepared for that kind of an environment? Because it will probably have a playoff-like atmosphere this weekend during these games. So are Harrison and Early able to put aside the pressure that comes with that and be able to execute and pitch well? That's going to be the biggest thing I'm looking at in this upcoming series with them, is are they going to be able to still pitch the way that we have seen them pitch already before? Well, it doesn't seem like a head scratcher to roll out these two. They're facing the Tigers, whose backs are against the wall after blowing a 15-game AL Central lead. So now they're fighting for their own spot in the playoffs. So they are going to come in hungry, knowing how important this series is. And neither Harrison or Early has faced an opponent as good as the Tigers, or one with as much to lose, because this would be really embarrassing by the Tigers if this season ends with them either missing the playoffs altogether or just not winning the division. They're still trying to win their division. So hopefully these two rise to the challenge and are able to make sure the Red Sox are heading to October baseball. But there is a chance that this all comes down to Sunday. There is a chance that the Red Sox go into their last game of the regular season on Sunday and they still haven't clinched a postseason spot. Obviously, I really hope that doesn't happen, but I'm not ruling that out right now because these pitchers are inexperienced. The benefit to rolling out those pitchers is that it gives them experience to a high pressure situation and gives them that exposure to preparing themselves for what a playoff atmosphere could feel like. Because if the Red Sox go into a wild card series, neither of them would be used to pitch because best of 3. So they would roll out Crochet, Bello, and Giolito. Then if it goes 3 games, and then if they do win a wild card series and they end up in the ALDS and they play games at Fenway, then they would have Harrison and or Early throw in that series, and they're going to want to have those guys prepared for that. So obviously it's a bit of a risk with these guys. I mean, it's a no-brainer to have them throw because they are next up in the rotation for this Red Sox team, so they kind of have to, but they could not pitch well if they don't handle that pressure well. And if they don't pitch well, hopefully the Red Sox bats can make up for it and win at least one of these games, because the Red Sox need to win one of these games or the Astros need to lose one game this weekend in order for the Red Sox to clinch a playoff spot. But the benefit, no matter what, depending on how Harrison and Early look regardless, is the fact that they will get exposure to a big atmosphere at a big ballpark where it will feel like a playoff environment. So that can only be beneficial for them down the road. So if the Red Sox do make it to the ALDS, that's positioning those two guys to pitch and hopefully be a little bit more prepared for that. So should be a fun weekend series. Going to be very stressful for sure. Not comfortable still. The Red Sox still haven't clinched a playoff spot. So obviously that fact doesn't make me very excited right now, but hopefully they can get it done this weekend. And I really appreciate you always tuning into the show and riding with me. It's been another amazing season here at Locked On Red Sox, and I can't thank people enough for all of their support. I'll be riding with you all the way through, hopefully for another month or so. We'll see how far the Red Sox go. But thank you so much for always tuning into the Locked On Red Sox podcast and making it your first listen of every single day. Make sure to next check out Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts. Or Locked On hosts, which are all local experts on their teams, go over every game every night all the way up until a World Series champion is crowned. So make sure you check that out next on any podcast platform. And most importantly, keep the faith. Go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.